Well, I finally chose some handles. In fact, in the end, I bought some from a chap selling them on eBay, and actually these are really good. Now these handles look quite nice, and here's the handle mocked up on this piece of wood here to illustrate the problem I have, and that is on the inside, because you can probably just make out there's a thread that goes all the way through the piece of wood, and then there's a nut on the inside. And although I can trim off this thread so it's tidier, it's not going to be perfect. And so I've come up with an idea, and I'll just illustrate what I intend to do. One of the things that I originally thought about was to counterbore the inside so that the nut could be recessed below the surface. And I then thought, well, actually that's going to be quite tricky to do to get it accurate and so on. So I've come up with a simpler solution. And this is a combination countersink and drill, which is part of the Pedestal assembly package, and it uses the Centratec interface to fix it to a Pedestal drill. And what I'm going to do is use this to do a precise countersink, like so, and like so, in this piece of wood. And I've purchased these 4mm screws, which are precisely right to screw into my pieces on the handles like this. And what I'm going to do first is to insert one into that hole, and you'll see that it's still proud of the surface here, and I'd rather it were a little lower. But because I've done that countersink, if I now put a large washer on here and put a nut on the end of the screw, like so, I can now encourage this screw to embed itself into the surface like so. And so now my screw is now virtually hidden below the surface. And this method only works because of that little bit of countersinking at the beginning. And of course the washer on this side to relieve the pressure. Now it's really important that I get these handles, first of all, of course, centered, but they all have to be the same height from the top of each drawer. And I'm taking as my reference point the top drawers, which are the narrowest of them all, and I've worked out exactly where I want to put the handles in here. So it's just a question now of making up a template. And what I've got is this. I've got a piece of wood which fits inside the drawer, and the purpose of that is to stop the chip out when the drill passes through. There's a piece of wood that will go on the front, and then these will be linked with two blocks, one on each side. And the idea is that when you want to use this, you slip it down over the drawer you're about to drill and drill through some pre-made holes here and here, and that will be in exactly the right place. That's the theory anyway. Now I marked the exact positions for those holes, and I took them to the drill press, and I've made the holes, and I've now fitted the handle to this piece just to satisfy myself that it looks okay, and I'm rather pleased with that. That looks quite good. And this also proves to me that I've got the spacing here absolutely spot on. They shouldn't be too loose, they shouldn't be so tight that the handle gets stuck in any given position. So it's got to be just right. So I'm pleased with that. It may seem like a bit of overkill, but I put a little bit of old rough old bits of felt I had left over from felting a drawer or something on the inside of these two, so that it's not going to scratch my nice drawer fronts when I put it over. Right, that's it. We should be ready to go now. And although I did these screws up quite tight at the beginning, I've slackened them off slightly just to give this just a little bit of room for maneuver as I take it on and off. And when I actually do the drilling, I'll put a clamp across there to make sure it's held nicely in place. That's that. And I'll just tighten these up, and I think you can probably see, or I hope you can see, that those now are just about flush there. I can tighten this one up a fraction more. That's that, and then there's our handle. And so that's pretty good. I'm pleased with that. I've applied that first coat of ordinary Poly-X to these drawers, and I'm now just rubbing off with this sanding fleece, and after a quick rub I'm giving it another rub with a dry lint-free cloth, and that's now prepared that surface to the standard that I like for the next stage, which of course will be putting on the Poly-X gloss. But I'm only going to put the Poly-X gloss on the walnut faces of the drawers. The sides I'm going to leave, and eventually they'll have a coat of wax polish. And as always, one needs to put a very thin coating of the Poly-X on. So I'm applying it sparingly, as you can see, making sure it does go everywhere, but everywhere sparingly. And there you can see what a beautiful finish that is. Absolutely lovely. Isn't that super? Really good. And that's now the last one done. Now when you've got profiles like this, it's actually pretty tricky trying to get a piece of sandpaper into the various crevices of a profile in order to do a proper job. So what I've got is a piece of stick, and I keep this in with my sandpaper. On one side I've got a sharpish edge, and I'll try and show that to you. That's a right angle there, and on the other side there's a curve, and so I use this for getting into all the awkward bits. And here's a piece of sandpaper. I stretch it across the curved bit. I'm going into a curved bit there, and you can see that it picks up. I've picked up lots of other stuff in previous passes, so it works very well. And the same with the sharp piece. You can put it across the sharp piece and get right into a place like this bottom piece here, where there's quite a sharp edge, and so all in all you can really get into some tight spots. It's just a simple piece of stick. In my case it's a piece of oak. Now it really does pay to put Osmo Poly-X on thinly, and what I'm doing with these mouldings is I'm using my thumbnail to make sure that I'm not leaving a build-up just near some of the fiddly bits, because otherwise that would just look awful. Now another part of the beauty of this Osmo oil is that if you're delivering something special like this to a client's house, and in the process of getting it there and set up you get a little knock, well, take a little can of the Poly-X or whatever it is with you, and you can do a local touch-up, and that blemish will go straight away. Now although these bases have had one coat of the ordinary Osmo Poly-X, they've been knocking around the workshop for quite a while, and they have had the odd little sort of scuff here and there. So I'm just going over them with the Abranet 240 grit, using this rather nifty little Merkur hand sanding attachment, and it's working pretty well. Well, I've applied the new Poly-X gloss to everything now. It's had its 2 coats, and it really does look super. And the great thing about it is it's so quick and easy to put on. No fuss. You sand down to 240 grit and then brush it on, wipe it off with a cloth. Leave it for 8, 12 hours, and then just put another coat on very thin, and then it's done. And it's so quick and easy. I reckon for the whole desk it takes about 1 hour to put the Poly-X on. Now before I fit the handles, I'm applying just a thin layer of wax polish to the frictional elements of the drawer. That's the sides, both the outer side of the sides and the top and the bottom. And this really does make the drawer run just that little bit more smoothly when it's in the desk itself. You don't need to put very much effort into this, it's just a very quick application of wax, and you then leave this to dry and give it a light rub at a later stage. Very simple. And there it is. I'm rather pleased with that.